After I'd worn them once or twice, I had irritated skin. After the third time, my feet swelled up. They itched so much I couldn't sleep. I thought a fungus might be causing the swelling. So I went to the doctor's. He'd never seen anything like it.
It was not until she went to the Fernand Vidal Clinic in Paris, a hospital specializing in toxins, that Rita Lemoine found help. Doctors there discovered that the violent skin reaction was caused by a chemical. Dimethyl fumarate, DMF, is a mold inhibitor which is now banned in Europe, but even so it was present in Rita's shoes. The source was the little white sachets that lay in the shoebox. The doctor treating Rita told her that henceforth she had to avoid all contact with DMF because even in small doses the chemical can cause violent allergic reactions. In France alone, hundreds of people with similar symptoms have been treated at medical centres specialising in toxin-related disorders. Parisian toxicologist Robert Garnier has studied the risk posed by DMF.
In most cases, it's no longer possible to determine how the shoes were imported. Were they packaged individually, or perhaps only put in boxes in Europe? It's possible that the packaging in which the shoes were imported contained DMF. And even if a box doesn't contain any sachets, the shoes themselves might have been treated directly with DMF. Thus, if the leather is totally impregnated with the toxin, the shoe itself is contaminated and then passes on this toxin to other shoes.
As a rule, it's no longer possible for the consumer to determine where shoes were produced. Today, the bulk of the world's shoes are produced in China, which has taken over as market leader in the space of only a few years. Firms like this one in the Shanghai region manufacture almost exclusively for the export market. Its products also include orthopedic shoes, which are purchased mostly by health-conscious customers. A sachet containing a mold-inhibiting chemical is added to each package. No one at the firm could say which chemical is used. The air in the production hall is heavy with the smell of solvents. Workers here are exposed to it all day long. The vapours come mainly from the adhesive used for the soles. Since solvents damage the respiratory tract and are usually carcinogenic, in many other countries, work of this kind is only permissible if there is an effective exhaust air unit in operation, or if the shop is well ventilated. Red leather, immaculate and supple, it is waiting to be cut to size. Chemicals as mold inhibitors are also used in dyeing leather. Organochlorides and pesticides that can cause numerous illnesses, not only in workers, but also in those who will later wear shoes made from the leather. To meet the huge demand for shoes, producers are looking for even cheaper manufacturing bases, like Bangladesh, one of the poorest countries in the world. Not only are vast amounts of cowhide produced here, because of the unstable economic system, many people in Bangladesh are prepared to work in poor conditions and for little pay. It is mainly chromium salts that are used for tanning the leather, but in primitively built production facilities, chromium-6 can easily develop, a chemical that is highly toxic and carcinogenic. And it is impossible to see whether leather is contaminated with chromium-6. Many factories in Bangladesh provide neither warning signs nor protective clothing. Workers here also handle toxic dye-stuffs without any idea of the dangers involved. And where tanning and dyeing are concerned, many other toxic substances are present, like organochloride compounds, which affect the respiratory tract. Or ethylene oxide, a solvent which initially causes nausea and headaches. In the long term, it can even cause genetic damage. The wastewater flows off untreated to burden the environment. But the leather for export has been well dyed, even though it's not clear what pollutants it contains. Thus, container loads of highly contaminated leather are exported. Consumers in the buyer countries have become accustomed to the low prices of globalized production, and the fashion store chains have been able to increase their turnover and their profits enormously. In many cases, imports such as leather goods, shoes and clothing are so highly contaminated that opening a container and unloading its contents has become a serious health risk. More and more often, warehousing staff suffer from respiratory problems and skin disorders through handling goods that have come straight from the factory. Protests at such working conditions are increasing. Here, employees with a major fashion chain are seen demonstrating in the German port of Hamburg. The flyers being handed out call for better health protection for warehouse workers. But what's the situation like with regard to the health of consumers? In contrast to foodstuffs, with clothing there are hardly any regulations on contaminants that manufacturers and commercial chains have to abide by. So, in the final analysis, customers can only hope that their new garments do not pose a health risk. There are growing indications, however, that new clothing can lead to serious health problems. Frauke Driesen worked for the international fashion chain Esprit for many years. Her job was to iron out newly imported jeans in the warehouse.
In the later stages of my illness, when I was in a lot of pain from my lungs, I was afraid of every pair of jeans. That's because of the unmistakable smell of chlorine that was being given off, and which I found to be a massive irritant. The pain in my lungs got worse and worse, even after I had stopped working. I didn't even find any relief at night.
Occupational physicians know of many such cases, but as Dr. Alexandra Preiser explains, they're hard to prove.
Proof is actually only possible through the application of a time frame. In other words, Mrs. Driesen fell sick during her employment, and the symptoms got worse during her employment. An improvement was only noticeable after she began working less, as we also proved here with our pulmonary function test.
At fashion fairs like this in Paris, toxins are not an issue. The focus is on the very latest trends. Jeans in the used look are still highly popular. To make them seem as if they have been worn for years, jeans are often sandblasted, says Alain Simonian from French fashion brand Carnage Jeans.
It's a difficult process. Using large pistols, workers spray the jeans with sand under high pressure. In doing so, they move to and fro. This abrades the material, but the sand also spurts back in the workers' faces. That's why we often advise against it.
What do you prefer?
Hand scrub jeans. You pull the jeans over a dummy made of clay or wood and scrub where the garment is supposed to look worn.
Following hundreds of worker fatalities in Turkey, the government has banned the sandblasting method, says Hussein Bayram from the clothing brand Sipo and Bags.
Even French television reported on the way in which jeans are sandblasted. In my country, this form of treating material has been banned. Strict controls are carried out to protect workers' health, and that is essential. To give jeans a used look, we now apply a laser method. Where jeans are concerned, sandblasting belongs to the past.
But in Bangladesh, industrial safety regulations of that kind are unknown. Factories like this turn out over 30,000 pairs of jeans a day. The main customers, the firm told us, are European textile traders, the big fashion chains from the middle price segment and cheap textile markets. Here, jeans are still sandblasted to give them that used look. The bit of cloth over the worker's mouth and nose offers no real protection. Besides the eyes, it is mainly the respiratory tract that is at risk. The air is full of tiny grains of sand which get into the lungs en masse and, in the long run, can result in death from asphyxiation. The textile sector has clearly learnt nothing from Turkey's ban on sandblasting. It has merely switched countries. Another serious problem is that, like the shoe industry, the clothing industry also uses lots of chemicals: formaldehyde, synthetic resins and heavy metals. In fact, a wide range of toxic substances are often used in the manufacture of jeans. Most factory workers are ignorant of the dangers involved. They've no idea of the kind of dyes, impregnators and shape retainers they're dealing with. Poor working conditions are part of everyday life in Bangladesh. Most workers have no alternative but to accept the risks. With poverty widespread, very few are choosy when the offer of a job presents itself. Consequently, chemicals put a strain on the health of factory workers, buyers abroad, and the staff of chain stores. Someone who knows what it means when toxins from textiles get into the body is Julia Neumann. She used to work as a visual merchandiser with the H&M fashion chain and developed serious kidney problems.
Tests indicated that I had dichloranilin and trichloranilin in my body. A special analysis then confirmed that these toxins were indeed present.
It was clear that the toxic anilins could well have come from azo dyes, as they're known. Regarded as carcinogenic, these dyestuffs are banned in most European countries. But even today, they're still used in places like Bangladesh, in particular for dyeing dark textiles. Julia Neumann had had her blood examined at her own expense in order to find the cause of her serious kidney problems. Environmental physician Klaus Dietrich Runow found further indications.
This lymphocyte transformation test means that living cells in your body have come into contact with chemicals, with dichloranilin, trichloranilin and also with chlorobenzene. These anilins have been responsible for high stimulation levels, which we measure with a stimulation index. Values up to 3 are within the normal range, but you have a value of 10. The conclusion from looking at these reactions is that on no account must you come into contact with newly unpacked textiles containing these substances.
Klaus Dietrich Runow has come across many similar cases of poisoning.
Julia Neumann is no one-off case. The number of patients harmed by chemicals who have developed a chemical sensitivity is constantly increasing worldwide.
What is particularly striking is that over the last few years, workers in the textile industry are being affected more and more. The insidious element of this is that often they show no immediate reaction.
If you experience redness or swelling after putting on a piece of clothing, then your first reaction, of course, will be to think that you're having an allergic reaction, that the clothing you are wearing is making you ill. But fast-acting contact reactions like this are rare. The critical reactions are the delayed reactions, those that occur when toxins accumulate slowly in the body with symptoms that only appear weeks or even months after exposure.
No fashion brand wants to be associated with such symptoms, so garments contain no indication of which chemicals were used in their production. Many fashion companies even purposely conceal the names of the countries where their clothing is manufactured, especially if such names would undermine the exclusive image of their brand. Vast quantities of cotton fabrics for the world market are processed in the town of Tirupur in southern India. Azo dyes are still permitted here. Because they're very cheap, chlorine-based dye stuffs are also popular. The darker and deeper the colour, the greater the toxic risk. Often, heavy metals are used to give dark colours their brilliance. What remains is toxic sludge that cannot be disposed of. The water is filtered, but where the huge amounts of residue are concerned, there are no dumps that would protect the groundwater. As a result, in Tirupur, a hilly landscape of toxic residues from textile production has formed. Within 20 years, the industry has poisoned the water and the land. But there are also other places in Tirupur. Textile buyers from all over the world like to put up at the luxury hotel. In fact, they never leave it throughout their stay. The textile manufacturers enjoy coming to the hotel to do business. This means the fashion traders don't have to face toxic reality, and thus makes the trip to Tirupur agreeable. Chemicals, which are now banned in many countries, are still being manufactured in the area around Tirupur. Very few of these factories display their name. International firms make use of the advantage of this as a location. Here they're not bound by environmental standards. This makes production efficient and cheap. Many of the chemical substances are used to manufacture textiles, like soda lye for refining carbon fibers, or base materials for the production of highly effective but also highly toxic pesticides for cotton plantations. And chlorine compounds for bleaching textiles. These aggressive substances are used in many bleaching plants to prepare the cotton for dyeing. The victims of this approach are the workers. Most are day labourers who also live in the factory. After only a short time, the effects of constant contact with the chemicals become apparent.
First I lost the hair on my legs, then all over my body. Now I feel ill all the time.
Doctors estimate that over the last 10 years, the number of cancer patients in the textile belt around Tirupur has doubled. Here, in the middle of the province, there are now special clinics for tumour disease. But very little research is done into the causes. The majority of the patients worked with textiles. This man has a kidney tumour. He used to work as a dyer, says the director of the clinic, Kandapan Velavan.
So you will mix the chemicals rinsing, no? So you will mix the chemicals in the water. So that is the main job. He has worked for more than 20 years. So chronic irritation may lead on to the malignancy.
Dr. Velavan is an oncologist. He moved here because of the high number of cancer patients.
In this area, mostly we do see adenic cancers, cancer esophagus, cancer stomach, cancer kidney, and urological urinary bladder, and of course in female cancer cervix, uterine cervix, and breast. These are the common cancers we see here. And the unfortunate thing is here the industry has been developed enormously, like textile industry, cotton industry, and other turmeric industry and all. But the other part of this thing, no, we do get so many human health problems.
In recent years, the poor working conditions in India and Bangladesh and the pollutant levels in textiles have tarnished the image of the major fashion chains. To prevent turnover from collapsing, fashion firms created new trends. Today they also offer garments made from organically grown cotton, and many customers have reacted positively. The eco-trend is booming. Indeed, India's farmers can scarcely keep pace with demand. In India, however, growing organic cotton is problematical. The pesticides that are spread in large quantities on conventional fields are also blown by the wind onto neighbouring fields, where often organic cotton is grown. According to the assurances given by seed producers, genetically modified cotton ought really to make pesticides superfluous. It has been shown, however, that bioengineered cotton plants attract new pests, which can only be combated through the use of toxins. But even if the cotton reaches dye works free of pesticides, there new problems arise. This dye works has been approved for organic cotton, but even so, it is not biological dyes that workers use, but conventional synthetic dyestuffs, and everything is dyed with them, from cheap t-shirts to far more expensive organic textiles. Asked how he can be sure that organic cotton is not confused with ordinary cotton, the factory manager can only laugh. In his opinion, organic cotton is clearly healthier, but only for the Indian farmers, not for those who buy the clothing. After all, here it's primarily about business. An exporter confirmed this practice.
This one order you made.
I could not agree. This is a 100% organic garment. Organic is without any chemical application. That only the garment, only the organic garment. We grow organic without any application, but we have to use chemical dye.
For many of those who buy clothing allegedly made from organic cotton, such statements are indeed disillusioning. Yet even if products manufactured from genuine organic cotton are not available as cheap mass goods, they do exist, made by small and medium-sized firms. In Germany, for example, such companies have banded together in the International Association of Natural Textile Industry, IVN for short. Rolf Heimann, who is responsible for quality management, explains which criteria the IVN has developed.
When we award the quality seal natural textile, we ensure not only that the cotton is grown organically and sold at a fair price, but that the entire production chain has been vetted. We use other dyes. A garment must be manufactured non-toxically. The end product must not contain any heavy metals, formaldehyde or synthetic resins. Nor must it have been bleached with chlorine compounds. Thus we have our own specific production chain, and in this we differ from all conventional processes.
Today, a mere 1% of newly manufactured clothing is not burdened by toxins. Only the purchasing behavior of the consumer, it seems, will be able to bring about a change in the manufacturing process, with all its dramatic consequences.